Hello, everyone. Welcome to Chofetz Chaim said what? Shmiros HaLashon class. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Welcome, Circa. All right. Glad that everyone's here. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Adam, Mom and Dad. All right, let's do this. Let's get right into it. The question. Okay. This one I chose because of the title. I know you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, so to speak, but the caption really caught me. When I think their taste is bad. My neighborhood is full of new custom homes being constructed. As a detail-oriented person, I notice the little things that the builders do, like where the windows are placed, etc. May I share my opinion on the design with a friend? Like, what was that person thinking putting a window in the corner? Or is such bad taste to make a grand entrance off to the side? Is it Lashon Hara about the people who design the house? Very interesting question. I didn't know where that was going to go with when I think their taste is bad.
Well, that's someone's opinion, and opinions are like bets. Everyone's got them, and they stink.
Wait, I didn't hear the last part of what you said. Sorry. Got muffly.
I said that's someone's opinion, and opinions are like bets. Everyone's got one, and they all stink.
Yes, you said opinions are like armpits. Everybody has one and they all stink, right? Um, so it is an opinion.
Okay, that's the Fumi way.
It's prohibited. It's Lashon Hara. Because you're not just talking
It's
about,
not like hard, but it's just rude.
you're not just talking about the house, because you're really talking about the person and their decisions and the decoration
Right.
and the choices of. So I say no, it's Lashon Hara.
So
Prohibited.
Chakro says it's not Lashon Hara. My father says it is Lashon Hara. And you can
It's just
say
bad
that
manners, and then it's bad manners, and what's going to
Settle this.
happen is you're going to say something, they're going to find out about it when you're over there for the first Shabbos dinner. It's going to be really embarrassing.
So is that Lashon Hara? What it comes down to, I believe, in this example, is there Toelas? Is it going to change anything? If by her making these
No.
comments, her saying, wow, that was really stupid idea for them to place the window in the corner, would that be a Toelas? Would that have any constructive purpose? Or would it just maybe cause more negative feeling and not be worth mentioning at all?
Don't mention it.
Prohibited.
Prohibited. Don't mention it.
Prohibited.
I think
Prohibited Lashon Hara.
I think we have an answer here. You're talking
No,
about
I agree. I
yeah?
agree. It's just gonna be hurtful. I mean, I just think it's gonna be. It's not really Lashon Hara, but I think it's just gonna make animosity between you both. I don't know.
And by using words that cause animosity, do you think that's considered Lashon Hara? You're saying that's not exactly Lashon Hara.
No, I don't think it's
That's
Lashon.
not-
It's not really Lashon Hara. It's just you're just gonna feel funny. I guess, like you said, like Adam said, you're gonna go over for Shabbos dinner. It's just gonna.
Okay, I think it's a great point that you just made. You said that it will cause animosity. I think the point that you just made by saying that is actually explaining why it is Lashon Hara, right?
Really?
Yeah,
Oh.
because Lashon Hara is essentially, if we're just like saying what it is, we're saying, okay, obviously it's so much more than just bad speech, but it's speech with no purpose that will definitely cause harm.
Okay.
So I think by exactly what you said, it is Lashon Hara. So I think that's a really great point that you made. It says we're talking negatively about the designer, which can affect his future visits, unless there is a foreseeable toelas, not be said. So even if someone says, "Hey, but I'll never meet the guy. I don't really know the designer anyway. I don't know. We said this, in classes many times before I did recordings. We said, before you make a comment, think about what effect it can have. Will it have a negative effect in the future? And the fact is, I always say, Sir, could you remember what I always say? I'm calling you out. Welcome, Daniel. Sorry, I didn't see you were here.
Hi, thank you.
I always say that we really never know if what we say is going to have negative consequences, right? We really don't. So by um, by thinking about, okay, maybe at some point this could have negative consequences, we're actually helping ourselves. In this case, it says it could affect the future business of this designer. What do you mean? We don't know this guy. All of my friends don't know this guy. Maybe you have a friend who's in the neighborhood. Maybe it's a friend who is across the country. They're never going to see them. But you really never know where your words are going to go. And in that way, it is Lashon Hara. And there's no Tuelis. And Tuelis is a. Okay, now I'm going to call you out, Circa.
Constructive purpose.
Thank you. A constructive purpose. Exactly. There's no constructive purpose. And so it is Lashon Hara. Exactly. Wonderful. Amazing. Ugh, I always want to do another one, but I know we should get right into it. Okay, so does anyone remember what halacha we were discussing in terms of Shmiros HaLashon last week? I know I'm going to try to give more of a refresher, but I want to see if anyone remembers anything.
I didn't miss-
It was about speaking before a certain amount of people. It was a heter, a leniency. Is this ringing any bells for anybody?
I actually didn't listen. I'm sorry, I didn't listen to your last week.
No
Right.
problem. No problem. There's no pressure. Sorry, Dad. Did you say something?
Right, sir. Yes, you're speaking for the three people. If three people already know it, you're speaking for the three people.
If three people already
And
know it,
it's-
why would that affect anything? In theory,
Right. Yeah.
it would be because it's
Public.
it would be considered public information, right? Exactly. Thank you, Dad. I really appreciate it. So it's Apei Tlasa.
I listen to Mariah's
Three
class.
people. Oh, I appreciate it. Exactly. Wonderful. Thank you so much. And no pressure, Sharon. Since teaching, I guess I'm calling on you. And I only teach pre-K, but I still do that to them. I'm like, so what's this week's Parsha? They're actually really good. They're really good. Today I was asking them about Purim, and they knew exactly. I said, tell me something about Purim. And then one of the kids goes, Esther is actually Hadassah. And I was like, you're learning things. Okay, anyway.
Aw.
So I'm sorry if I call people out. Something I'm working on. Maybe it'll work, maybe it doesn't. We'll see. All right. So Apei Tlasa, speaking before 3. I believe I see where we ended it. And so I have this whole section. I don't know why it's there. Okay. Then we're on section 8 of principle 2, which is discussing Apei Tlasa. There's no difference in the language of the exhortation, whether he urged them not. Oh, yeah, we did discuss this. So we were saying if someone says, please don't tell anybody about this, and then one of the listeners accidentally says over the information, then it's Lashon Hara. So we're saying speaking before 3 people technically is considered public information. So technically, according to this heter, this leniency, the person would be allowed to tell over the information that they were told. But it has to be one of the first listeners, one of the 3 people, and definitely if they're 3 listeners and they are tzaddikim, or they are God-fearing men, then it wouldn't be considered public information, because God-fearing men wouldn't just let information get out there, and they wouldn't tell over information. but are saying even if there was one of the three listeners who is a God-fearing man, then definitely not. It wouldn't count. And it can't be two people speaking to two people. It has to be one person speaking to three people, and only those first listeners will be able to tell over the information. This is the heter, and like I said, we don't go by it, but these are the laws. And then we also said, okay, I'm gonna go. All this that we have said applies to the Isra prohibition of repeating it itself, but God forbid to add words or to embroider one thing to the hearer is completely forbidden. So he said, whatever information is being told, no one could embroider it or exaggerate. Obviously not, chas v'shalom. That's definitely not okay. I spoke about a little bit about the idea of broken telephone. Ideas can change, and that completely changes the whole concept. The whole context, I mean. All right. If someone had faults in his youth, but now conducts himself correctly, or he forbears, or his forebears, so his parents, did not conduct themselves correctly at all, but he is not a part of it. And if someone has a past and does teshuvah, or his parents did something wrong and he's not a part of it, it's forbidden to demean him or to shame him before his friends. So we speak a lot about someone who is a Baal Tshuva or someone who's a convert, a Gyoris, or a Ger. You're not allowed to bring up their past. They're allowed to bring it up if they're comfortable speaking about something. They feel like they want to share something. And a lot of times they bring it up because they want to talk about their lives because it was still a part of their life, and they want to teach people about it and how they grew. But for the most part, no one should bring up the fact like, oh, at one point in your life, did you ever eat pig? Can you tell me about that experience? Like, that person has already done teshuvah; they've already moved on. So in that way, it would be lashon hara. It'd be really bad to talk about that. If someone speaks about these things before others, even if he does not add anything to the truth, he is speaking lashon hara, and it says does not behold the divine presence. So interesting, and that's from the Shari Tshuva. The heter of Apei Tlasa does not apply in this situation. So that's an example. Okay. The heter leniency loophole of Apei Tlasa applies to the speaker. And after all these things and the truth we've explained, how much more must one distance himself from the leniency, which is practically has no place in reality. So they're saying, okay, yeah, this is Apei Tlasa, and technically it does exist, but it's unrealistic for everything to apply and have all these qualifications and it being considered okay to tell over the information. According to many poskim, there is no source for the leniency in Talmud. Do not rely on this leniency. I wrote that in bold letters and I highlighted it just so that we know. Therefore, one who guards his soul will distance himself from this. All right. Oh my gosh, we're almost at the end of this second principle. When the 7 city dignitaries preside over the actions of men in the city in matters of assessment and the like, where their judgments will be the determinant of one and to the benefit of another. So they're saying in a situation where they're saying, okay, this is the ruling for you, and it's obviously going to be one person's favor and not the other, right? I still hear the echoing. Okay, that's my fault. Okay, and there are different opinions and decide a court majority when they leave the queen of the chamber. They must not believe what happened to those who opinion those who's. So it's saying, can't say what person chose to rule by this and which people didn't. I think there was once a question actually that was brought up, one of the Q&As that we had for the class, where they said, and I might have even brought it up even recently during the recordings, but in the shul, they said, okay, we're going to vote to see who should do, let's say, like chakra, some maintenance in the shul, right? And there's chakra running and another guy running. And then they say, okay, you know what? we decided that Chokro should not do maintenance in the shul. Scandalous.
You guys will be sorry.
Now I messed everything up. Oh gosh, chas v'shalom. So and then Chuck was like, "Are you kidding me? I'm amazing at this. You guys didn't vote for me." And then the guy comes up who is part of the shul's member, and obviously this never happened. And he goes, "I voted for you. I did." And then obviously you go, "Okay, so you did vote for me. So then who didn't vote for me, right?" That's not allowed to happen. All right, but anyway, everyone would vote for Chuck Rowe to work in the show anyway. Because he's doing a wonderful job right now. Still working on that door?
Yes.
Awesome.
I didn't realize all those paintings above the office doors.
Yeah. All right. If someone lectures in a house of study, it is forbidden to mock him and say that there's nothing to his lectures and nothing to hear. God forbid. And you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Apei Tlasa does not apply. Okay, and this I wrote, mocking a rabbi or a speaker's drasha, God forbid. And there's another Q&A where they asked, they said, my son listens to lectures from the rabbi, and when he comes home, shiurim, drasha, divrei Torah, the rabbi will give something over, and then the son, who I think they said he's really young, so he could have been, like between 4 and 6 years old. And he gives over the drasha that the rabbi said, and he does all the mannerisms and the voice. And the mom was like, "Is this mocking the rabbi? He doesn't mean it in that way." And they said, "Well, because he's so young and doesn't understand, he's just giving it over as he hears it. Kids will very often copy what they see. Like I'll say one of the actual one time in one of my classes, one time in one of my classes, the kids were they were talking to me, and you were walking to dismissal, and we walked by all these babies, and I go, "Oh, such cute babies," and then the kids go, "Oh, cute babies." Mind you, these kids are probably less than 2 years older than the little tiny babies that were there, and only a couple inches taller. But they're saying, "Oh, such cute babies," is so precious. But they do. Kids very often copy what they see, and they're learning. So that's the way they learn. So they said it's not lashon hara for your son to do it, but if you were to do it, it would be considered mocking. So I hope that I was trying to give more of a context to this. If someone revealed to his friend in the presence of 3 details about his occupation or trade or the like, things which in general otherwise forbidden to repeat afterwards to another, it would result in injury or pain to him now, since he himself revealed it in the presence of 3, it is evident that if this is of no concern to him, even if it comes into being in the end. So therefore, one who hears it is permitted to reveal it to others as long as the teller does not make it clear that he's opposed to doing so. So it's saying, technically, if the person's in front of 3 and they're giving over information and they're not opposed to telling it over about themselves, it's saying if it would result in injury or pain to him. That one, I remember doing this and having it much more clearly in my mind, and now sort of blanking on the whole concept of that. Basically, I think it's saying if you're telling over the information, and even if the guy is like, "Oh, it's fine to tell over that information," even if it would cause him pain, it could inevitably cause someone to think badly of him or to have pain, and he's not like, "Oh yeah, don't tell over this information," and technically you're allowed to tell over the information. But I would say, especially in this case, to not do so. I mentioned very much to not rely on the leniency. To not rely on the leniency of Apei Tlasa. Does Apei Tlasa make sense? Does anyone have any questions on the idea of Apei Tlasa? Or a specific question about the heter itself? No, that's good. It's a very interesting section because I mean, in the long run, it doesn't really mean much to us. But I think it could have been at some point there was a use for it, and now there's no way that we could even go by that. Okay, I think we could go into how many minutes do we have? Oh, a few minutes. I don't want to completely start a new section, but I sort of do. All right, so principle 3. This is taken straight from the Sefer Chofetz Chaim. All right, so was Sefer 2. If someone is not alone and they're careful to speak it only in private and insist that no one reveals the information to the subject they are speaking of, cursed be he who smites his neighbor in secret. Even if he knows that he would say it to the subject's face, or he actually speaks the Lashon Hara to the subject's face. Even so, it's forbidden to, and it is called Lashon Hara. In one respect, the Isser is greater to his face than, so they're saying that it's even greater to say, oh, I would speak it to the subject's face, or in actuality, take the Lashon Hara and actually say it to the subject's face. I don't think anyone I know has that much chutzpah. And in his presence, aside from the Isser of Lashon Hara, the speaker clothes himself with a trait of brazenness and audacity and arouses more strife, God forbid. This often leads to the subject feeling shamed, and that's a negative commandment from Vayikra. Do not bear a sin because of him. So we're getting back into Shmiros HaLashon, away from the heter of Apei Tlasa. And this is a really interesting one, because before we said speaking it in front of more people, the bigger the sin. Now we're saying speaking Lashon Hara in secret is also a huge sin, right? So we're saying, okay, don't speak in front of a lot of people, but also don't speak it in private. Just because we said don't speak it in front of a public, in front of a bunch of people, doesn't mean, okay, but I'll just do it in private and that's okay. It's not. So I really like that. It's not really the intro, it's the first section of the third principle. All right, do one more. When it is something to be understood in two ways, there could be one way where nothing's demeaning. This is dependent on the intent of the speaker. So we gave the example of someone always has fire at their house, but we could also say in the way that we give over the information, right? I don't know if it's later on in this principle exactly, but we said we could talk about someone where we say they spend this amount of hours a day learning, right? And if it's someone who's working, and we say, let's say they spend 1 to 2 hours a day learning, and there's someone who works full time. Wow, that's an amazing thing. They learn that much every single day, and they still manage to make a living. That's an amazing thing that they're able to do. And then we could also say in the way like, oh, but that person's supposed to be learning full time, and they're not learning, and they're learning that little bit amount a day. Or it could be in the way that we're saying something. And we know that, I feel like, I sort of want to say this. As women, a lot of we could say over something and it could seem really nice. The words themselves could be nice words, but then the way we say it could be very passive aggressive or mean. And that definitely is part of the second part in principle 3. I'm going to end it here for now. We're going to probably start, I may review a little bit, and then we'll either start on principle 3, section 1 or section 2. I really appreciate everybody listening, and I hope that was interesting. And
great job, love.
next week.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.